Hi guys, welcome back to Don't Forget the Art. I am so excited you are here. Today we are celebrating Barbara Hepworth. I hope I'm saying that properly. And we're studying sculpture. Now, Barbara Hepworth was an artist. She lived in Europe during the both of the World War eras. She sculpted in bronze and wood, but her stone sculptures are the ones that I think appeal to me the most. I had an artist friend years ago who used to do sculptures in a very, very similar style to hers in marble and other stones that were just kind of very flowy and more just kind of a flow and a shape, and a lot of them being kind of circles, and it's just so awesome. Anywho, they had some really awesome geographic shapes and feels. And I thought it would be fun to celebrate her, especially here around the time of her birthday, and dig into sculpture. Now, I think I have told you before, I have one son in particular, three sons. One in particular is very interested in learning sculpture. He is very, very much drawn to three-dimensional type arts and crafts type projects. Now, if you know me, you know that I am more of a two-dimensional artist and work with a variety of mediums, but on a two-dimensional level between inks and markers and pencils and colored pencils and graphite pencils and oil pastels, soft pastels, acrylic paint. Yeah, that kind of stuff. Sculpture isn't really into, too much of what I do. Sometimes I like to put some texture in my painting, but that would probably be as close to sculpture as I get. So this is a little bit of a stretch for me. Actually, this is a lot of a stretch for me. Okay. I'm going to tell you the God's honest truth. And I mean this sincerely. I almost scrapped this one again. This was much out of my comfort zone, but I did overcome it. And I am starting very simple. I would like to dig deeper into sculpture. And so if that is something you and or your kiddos are interested in, stay tuned, subscribe, do all of those fun things. Stay tuned to my blog because I am going to try some other sculpture things. But since this is new to me and it may be new to you, I'm going to start simple. Okay, clay is something that I have done in the past, and it's something I figured would be a great way to tiptoe myself in. On top of that, this, air dry clay is pretty accessible. I'm assuming most of us don't have a kiln sitting somewhere in our basement or, garage or, outdoors. I don't know, anywhere. I don't have one. So air dry clay was what I thought would be best. It's relatively inexpensive. They do have different brands out here, but, out there that you can get. I'm sure it's on Amazon too. You know me, I tend to just go to the store. This I actually found at Walmart. They have it at Hobby Lobby. I'm sure they have it at Michael's too. Again, the biggest thing is, you finding what's going to work best for you. But online at Walmart, it's like $5-6 for a container of this, and it goes a long way. So, I have at least 2 other kiddos who are going to do this project. And the nice thing is with the price, especially at this kind of beginner level that I am at, that my kiddos are at, it makes it nice and easy to justify that I can do this project. So again, very little things that, a few things that you're going to need with this. And again, it's a great way for us to kind of tiptoe our way in. The biggest things that you will have to have would be the clay, a cup for water, and the water itself. Okay. I would recommend some aluminum foil so that your sculptures don't have to be solid clay. That's going to help to save some of the clay. And also so that it has a more solid base to it. I can kind of give you a sneak peek of what I have created here. I've created a little sculpture, and at the center, the core of this is aluminum foil, okay, a ball of aluminum foil. So again, probably stuff these you have around your house, I'm sure. This isn't going to take too much to get. Now, you can also use different tools and things like that from around your house that you may have. I will tell you that knowing that my kiddo wanted to get into sculpture, about a year or so ago, we got a sculpture kit. We got one of those cool art kits, and it was chock full of all sorts of sculpture things. So we had some of these toys and tools and doodads and things like that that I used around here. Okay, it's going to help you to smooth the clay and get different, you know, forms and things like that. Cut the clay, all that fun stuff. And you can find this at Hobby Lobby. I saw them. You can find it at Michael's. You can find it online at Amazon. They're just some really, really cool tools. And if you get them, you know, either a little bit at a time, if you make the investment, these are things that will last you for a while. So I can put in the description some different links to some, you know, different tools if you are interested in looking at getting those. But again, you can use pencils, you can use, you know, this part of paint brushes, you can use toothpicks, you can use your own fingers, you can do that stuff. And I will say that's one thing I do like about the clay, the air dry clay, is that, you know, your fingerprints are kind of left behind on it. So if you want tools, you can use them. They are completely optional. You do not have to have them in order to create a cute little clay sculpture. But if that's something that you would like and you would have then for the future, that would be great. So the next piece of advice that I would give you for this sculpture is to, especially if you're new to it, okay, so this is for newbies kind of like me. Again, I tried this, I tried a couple other projects, and I did indeed struggle. It was just, wasn't a medium. I knew in my head how I wanted it to look. The biggest problem I think I had is that I am used to taking a flat surface, taking what's in my head and putting it on a flat surface, and now taking that two-dimensional surface and putting a third dimension into it where there's a depth that I wasn't used to was a little bit more difficult. And especially again, since I wasn't familiar with the medium, I really had to show myself some grace and mercy. It was an aha moment that I had in the shower. Not sure why my aha moments happen in the shower, but my aha moment happened in the shower. And I thought to myself, you know what? Since about September or so, I started drawing some gnomes. Okay, so I started with this. I've been trying to draw gnomes for years. This one I drew, this is my bullet journal, one of my old bullet journals. I drew this guy in my bullet journal. And I really, really liked how he turned out. And since then, I have really been digging into drawing gnomes. Not every day, but it's one of those things that I enjoy doing. A lot of people like them. They think they're cute. I think they're cute. I think they're very, 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 very cute. And so I thought to myself, why not try something that I'm a little bit more familiar with if I'm going to start? And I am going to tell you that I think was my key to my success in this project. Taking something that I was familiar with and creating with that, because I was already familiar with it. So my next piece of advice, besides the supplies that you'll need and maybe some that you would want, would be to, if working in sculpture is something that is new to you, when you try to figure out what creation you're going to make, take something that you're good at in two-dimensional drawing and go from there, or maybe let that be your idea. I think that might be the key to success in you having a better experience with it. I would also ask you to give yourself some grace and mercy. If you're new to sculpture, if you're not all that familiar with it, chances are your first project isn't going to look like Michelangelo did it. So that's okay though. We're not looking for perfection. Everybody starts out as a beginner. Everybody starts out as an amateur. So with that said, this is why was my goal. Let's take a look at what steps I took in order to help me create a cute little gnome sculpture. So it seems pretty simple, but for a lot of sculpture projects, especially dealing with clay, oftentimes the center core of it is aluminum foil or a filler like that. And since aluminum foil is in most everybody's kitchen, it just seems like the most obvious to use. It's relatively inexpensive. And so if this project doesn't really turn out the way that you want, the benefit of the materials that I'm using and would suggest that you would try, especially if this is really kind of your first time really playing around with sculpture, is that they are relatively inexpensive, pretty easy to get your hands on. And so it's not going to cause a lot of stress initially as far as the expense or other things. So like I said, decided that with this one, I was going to make a gnome. My geometric shapes just really did not work out very well. It's something I will have to work on and play around with in the future. But when I decided to make my gnome, I knew I needed to have kind of a base core body. So that's what you saw me do there. And now I'm just adding to it. So sculpture comes in one of two parts. You're either taking away like a marble slab and you're sculpting out the figure that's inside of it, much like the David or other things that you think about with like Michelangelo and some of those really awesome sculptors, right? Or you're adding to. And that's kind of what clay is. Clay is one of those type of sculpting materials where you are adding to it. You start with a core. You can pull away if you wanted to, but I guess it's a give and take. You can add to it and you can take things away from it. So again, for me, the hardest thing with this one was just trying to think of my two-dimensional figures, gnomes that I tend to draw, trying to think of them in some kind of a three-dimensional shape. Which sounds crazy because when I'm drawing them, I'm thinking of them in a three-dimensional way. But that really was what it came down to. Now you see me using these tools. Now I will say with these tools, I put the links in below of where you can find some of these. These that I have here, I actually got as part of an art box that my kids and I got last year to play around with some supplies. As I mentioned, my middle is quite into three-dimensional sculpture. But you can use, plastic knives or old silverware, things like that that you have around your house. You don't have to go crazy and get a whole bunch of supplies. Start simple, start small. Even if you want to get, a toolkit, go and get something that is, relatively, a decent quality, but as, inexpensive. This way you can play around with it. You can always upgrade, but I would just hate to have somebody go out and spend a whole lot of money on something and only to find out that they really don't enjoy it. So, I mean, that's just kind of how I tiptoe into it. You're certainly welcome to do what you would like, but a lot of times you may be surprised. Some of the, less expensive materials, are still some decent quality, uh, um, decent quality products, despite their, lesser price. So, it's a great way to start and kind of see what works for you, what doesn't, what you need, what you don't. And if you feel, hey, this, maybe could be a little bit better, I'm going to try, a different quality or different brand or things like that. You can. The other thing with some of with the sculpting tools is, once you have them. And so you don't have to go out and buy those again for the next sculpting project, kind of like the paintbrushes or paints or things like that. If you get them and you spend the money on them, um, you'll have them for the next go around. So sometimes it's a little, worth investing a little bit of money into it, especially if this is something that you or your kiddos think that you would enjoy doing. So I'm adding to this, as you can see, I added the nose first. I put the brim of the hat on and kind of built up the hat, put the shoes on, and now I'm working on his beard. My gnomes have some pretty long beards going on, which I quite enjoy, although sometimes I miss seeing their little clothes, trying to find a balance with some of that. But so adding the details in there, and again, this is where a toothpick or plastic silverware, other little doodads, toys, and things like that that they might have around the house will work as well. Um, and adding his arms. Now, I will say when I'm adding things to it, if you notice, I'm wetting my fingers, I'm wetting the clay, and I'm really making sure to work that into the clay so that those two separate pieces, stick together and become one. This is not regular clay that's going to go in a kiln and fire up and get really hot and really hard and everything stick together. This is still air dry clay. I have had good luck with it. If you remember last year, we made the grease vase pots, pinch pots, and mine is still doing well. My kiddos is still doing well. So the Crayola air dry clay, I am impressed, especially considering the price. It's a really soft, smooth, silky kind of texture to it, and it works pretty well, all things considered. So, but you are going to want to remember some of the things that you probably did in elementary school or things like that. Wet the clay, stick it together, make sure that you smooth out all those edges, because, once that dries, that's pretty much it. Now, the one thing I will say that I like about clay is that fingerprints are often left behind. So when I'm watching my kids do it, even when I'm doing it, you can see the artist's actual fingerprints right there the in the sculpture, and to me that's just pretty cool. The other thing that I really like is just that anything is really possible with this medium. The sky really is the limit. It's just a matter of what it is that you would like to do. I would recommend starting small, especially if this is your first go around. As you can see, my gnome is not that big. He fits in the palm of my hand, so that makes it a lot easier to work with. That center core of aluminum foil also helps to keep it from being too heavy and gives it really a stable, solid center core foundation for all of the clay to kind of stick to and and work around. Clay, as you know, can be pretty mushy, so that hard core of that aluminum foil really helps out. Now, with my gnomes, they tend to wear pretty baggy clothes in the picture. So what I'm just trying to do here is to smooth out some of that excess that I added to it so that it looks like it's all one part of a shirt. And now again, like I said, there are things that I would do differently if I were to do this again, as anybody can say when they do it. But overall, I am very happy with it. Now, since the project was mostly about sculpture, I am really fast forwarding through here with the painting. Although I will say, I don't know why, I thought the sculpture would take longer than the painting. The painting wound up taking longer than the sculpture for me. That may not be your case. But again, this is where I would suggest you separate this project into 2 days. One day maybe do all of the sculpture. You could even do 3, plan it out, then do the sculpture, then do the painting. But definitely separate the sculpture from the painting. You want the clay to completely dry. And then I am using, as you can see here, my regular acrylic paints that I use right there on my canvases. You can use anything. You can use craft acrylic paints. You could probably use tempera paint. I don't know if I've ever used tempera paint on clay. I have had really good luck with acrylics. Just be careful, just like with canvas, if that clay starts, or if the paint starts to dry a little bit, gets kind of tacky, it can pull up as you're, using it, the paint over it. That happened in a few places. It can happen with canvas as well. It's just something that you want to be aware of. I mean, I definitely probably went into more detail. I do enjoy adding the detail to my little gnomes. I think it helps to give them a little bit of character and round them out a little bit. And I really did have fun with it. It was very relaxing. Again, with any subject, with any medium, try to find a subject that you're comfortable with, that you enjoy drawing, painting, whatever. And that may really help you to take that step forward and try that project and have success with it. And now that I know the clay and the medium a little bit better, I'm feeling a little bit more comfortable even with working some more with sculpture in the future. So I am pretty excited about that. Now I'm going to add in my my Gnomes Beard and the gray and white, because he's a wise old gnome, and hopefully it will encourage you. You can do this. You can have a lot of fun with your kiddos with this. I hope that you give it a chance and try it and have some fun. I can't wait to see the projects you create. And here is my finished product, guys. I hope you like him. I think he's pretty gosh darn cute. Now, is he identical? No. And, if you want my honest truth, I would probably do a lot of things different if I was to go ahead and do another one of these, I'm sure. Again, it was a learning lesson for me in trying out a different medium. I am excited about trying other forms of sculpture after this. I think some of those times when you get a little bit of a taste of success and trying something different, something creative, it will definitely help you. The other thing I will say is, even as a two-dimensional artist, I think that maybe working with the three-dimension aspect to it may actually help me with my two-dimensional projects, because it'll help give me, a little bit better picture of what that three-dimensional object that it is that I'm trying to draw would actually look like. Now, with this, I am going to let him dry completely. Okay, and then once he does, I'm going to go ahead and, once we have a decent day outside too, nice bright shiny day that isn't too humid, I'm going to take him out and I'm going to spray him with some varnish. And I would recommend that you do that with your project too. Matte or gloss or satin, the finish really doesn't matter, but you are probably, just like any painting, going to want to seal it up. It'll help to protect it. It'll help to protect it from UV light from the windows or anything like that. The most important thing is that I hope you guys have fun with this project. I hope it gets the creative wheels flowing. If sculpture isn't much of your thing, I would take some time with this one. This one I would probably make as a 2-day project. The first day to create your sculpture. You might even want to stretch it to 3. The first day to sketch out what your plans are. Second day to do the sculpture, and the third day to do the painting. You definitely will want to let the air dry, the paint dry completely before you, or the clay dry completely before you paint it. I know what I'm saying. But yeah, that would be what I would suggest. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I will be happy to help you where I can. Again, I am no expert, but this was certainly fun. I will certainly be trying some sculpture, some air dry clay again. This was a pretty interesting adventure. And I hope you guys have fun. Make some memories with your kiddos. Make some memories for yourself. Have fun, get creative, and I can't wait to see you next time. Happy arting, everyone.